Welcome to the Do You Mind podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Zimmerman. This podcast is dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of consciousness, exploring how internal and external forces shape our self-awareness, and understanding how our experiences define a reality. Guests will appear regularly and share their expertise on various topics. Subscribe and stay tuned for thought-provoking conversations that explore the deeper questions about life and consciousness. I want to go over a little bit of my past and things that I had to go through during my transformation to get the results that I wanted. It was not easy at first, just like anything in life. If you're learning how to play baseball or to throw a football, typically sports are a pretty good example for a lot of people to understand. Or maybe you're trying to learn a new skill in business, maybe sales or writing copy or managing people, whatever it is. We have to have a very strong vision of what it is we want, because most time people will give up on their dreams or their hopes or their goals much sooner than required to actually achieve those things. Persistence is the word here. When we persist, we achieve. And the analogy is you're a ship sailing at sea towards an island of your desire. And if you're constantly changing your mind and pivoting, you're never going to reach that island. It takes consistent effort over a pretty long period of time, typically, to achieve great things. Rome wasn't built in a day, is one of the sayings. So for myself, this is what this had to become, and there was many times when I wanted to pivot, I wanted to change, I wasn't sure about myself. I felt like doing something new, and I think that's a very common thing from what I've heard in the conversations that I've had with people, and also just the statistics on how long a business survives when people start a business. It's typically about a year. So there's a graveyard of businesses that have been created but not sustained over time because a lot of people just gave up on it. So from my own personal experience, I had to create a vision board, something that I could see every single day. I began to site program my environment, which in this case was my room, but also my office. Any wisdom that I was picking up at the time that had a tremendous impact on my consciousness, I would tack it to the wall in my office, and I'd look at it every single day in between, doing tasks at work, kind of just when I would do the Pomodoro technique and just relax for a minute. I'd glance at my wisdom wall, I called it, and it would further program my subconscious mind because I was recalling this stuff over and over and over again several times throughout the day for months. This was huge. Other things I did, I had a vision board in my room, and the way I wanted to look, the activities that I wanted to do, the profession I wanted to move into was all on my vision board. Quotes from people that I found inspiring were on there. And so I had the words and the images, and I had the words highlighted. I had these little, these shapes that kind of look like explosions, like a 2D explosion. I got a handful of those, and I would write these key words on there, whatever it was I was working on. And I think one was, the big one was working out and getting my body in the best shape of my life. And just becoming this new version of myself that looked really different, like growing my hair out, growing my beard out, building muscle mass, getting tattoos. A lot of this had to do with expressing myself because for a long time I didn't. I felt stifled and I wanted to explode my creativity. And the tattoos were kind of like a commitment. Like I was telling myself that I was willing to commit to things permanently and to stop hesitating and stop waiting for something to happen and utilizing that masculine energy just to make things happen. That helped a lot because there was this narrative in my head, or at least the history of what, I was wrapped up in with my identity was that I was never following through with things and I couldn't complete long-term projects. I'd always pivot or get bored or want to do something else. So up until that point in my life, in my early 30s, I'd never really accomplished anything long-term. It's kind of just floating with the tide, just milking my job, just living kind of a mediocre existence, and didn't have much fulfillment at all. Honestly, there's a lot of apathy there. I didn't pursue much, if anything. I would chase cheap, quick dopamine fixes like video games and smoking marijuana and drinking on the weekends and binge watching Netflix shows and eating junk food, like eating out 2 to 3 times a day, not being responsible with my finances, just barely living over paycheck to paycheck, so no savings, and not contributing to anything greater than myself, kind of just existing ultimately. And it wasn't until life storms came that it kind of woke me up. I had an idea before because we have these periodic life storms that come and shake us up a little bit. And we realize that, hey, we need to change, we need to progress, we need to grow. We need to be refining ourselves into more powerful, creative beings that can handle whatever life throws at us. And if we're not sharpening our sword to cut through the thicket of life, the jungles of life, to clear a path, and to steer our lives in the direction we want to be going, we will succumb to the wind. We'll just be blown around. We'll be lost. We won't have a good vantage point. We won't have that clear-mindedness and clarity that is required to drive ourselves in the direction we want to be going. So when I started doing all these things, working out every day, I had a mentor. My brother helped me out with that. And I'm not sure if I would have made it through if I didn't have that mentor in the gym, because it taught me how to have form. It taught me how to be consistent. He showed me the ropes pretty much. So I think mentors are extremely important if you're on this journey and you're trying to transform and you keep falling back in the same patterns. And you have learned helplessness now and you no longer even have New Year's resolutions, or honestly, you shouldn't wait for New Year's, but most people do. And the statistics are by February 10th, about 85% of people have fallen off their New Year's resolutions by February 10th. So it's, a small number of people actually follow through on their resolutions when they decide to do something and then stick with it. Most people, they live these patterns of behavior and have the same kind of life. And so transformation ultimately is a shift in identity. Some people use terms of like timeline shifting and things like that. And in a way, yeah, you're existing as a different person because you've transformed, but ultimately you still have your same essence. The idea is that you question your patterns, you question your behaviors, you question why it is you do what you do, and you start to dissect those things. Once you can recognize them, you can begin to disrupt them. Once you disrupt them, then you can begin to create the patterns that you want. And these patterns or repetitions, they become your behavior over time, because it's firing and wiring specific neurons in your brain that your identity starts to form around, like, oh, I'm this type of person. Like when I started going to the gym at first, it felt like an alien world. Like me lifting weights was not a thing. So my brain would kind of ask questions like, what are we doing here? What is this? Why don't we just go back to what we were doing before? This is not us, right? There was an identity disconnect. Over time, this changed. The more I went to the gym, the more I worked out, the more my brain got familiar with the muscle movements. So I had the mind-body connection forming. It became a natural activity and just something that I just did. I didn't really question anymore. It's like, oh yeah, no, I lift weights, or I work out. That's what I do. So it became a part of my identity. I think this is essential. It's also with business building and relationships. However we define ourselves is what we're typically going to live up to. There's really little room for mistake there. You're pretty much going to live up to your definition of who you are as a person, because that's your expectation of how you're going to behave. And it's also how you've physically wired yourself to exist and behave. So the subconscious programming aspect of this is huge for transformation. And it takes repetition. That's the number one way to rewire our brains, our subconscious programming. And our conscious mind will catch up because it'll begin to recognize and say, hey, we're doing these things over and over again. This is the most difficult thing to do. And it's the same thing with businesses. A lot of it's expectation and being patient and having persistence and staying the course. That's where discipline comes in. So to be consistent, you have to have discipline. Discipline is the connecting virtue here. And if your why is strong enough, you can come up with any how. You will find a way. Kind of like water does when it's going down a cliff. It'll find a certain path to get down it, and if it doesn't, if it gets stopped, then it'll pool and then eventually spill over into a different direction. So we don't just stop when there's resistance or anything like that. We continue to find a way and be directionally conscious of where we're moving. towards this goal that's very important to us, and it has to be. It has to be a compelling vision of your future for this to work. And that's why I'm still doing what I'm doing. I started my business back in early 2023. I decided about a month or about 8 weeks before I started my business is when I decided that I wanted to become a coach and help other people just like I help myself. I didn't realize it was a way to give back and support until I went to Tony Robbins' UPW event, which is Unleash the Power Within, where we walk across fire, we learn how to get up to level 10 energy. So most people are kind of living at a level 5. We conditioned ourselves in a very short amount of time to understand what peak state is and what energy is and how we can use it and how we can optimize it. And I'd already been on a path before that of transformation, so a lot of that stuff wasn't new to me, but it was people recognizing my skills and things like that, but I would never have experienced that if I didn't put myself out there. And it was a scary thing. I flew across the country to go do it. I was kind of just sending it. Like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But it's another point to make here is, putting ourselves in the environments that will help us transform. Surrounding ourselves around people that are into transformation. Whatever it is you're trying to build, you want to surround yourself with like-minded individuals because they're going to support you on your way. And you guys can provide feedback to each other, and you join forces and become more powerful. That's a very, very strong point to make. For me, it's been instrumental, and it is to not be overlooked. A lot of people try to do this stuff on their own, and they have trouble asking for support, or they have trouble joining up and linking with other people. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I mean, maybe it's to avoid embarrassment, or to maybe it's a stubbornness. I'm not sure. But I highly encourage you, if you want to transform, seek out other people that are on that path and join forces with them. And the analogy I love there is like a fleet of ships sailing towards the same island. Like, you don't have to be the only ship sailing, and in reality, you aren't the only ship sailing towards whatever island you're trying to sail towards. There's other people on similar journeys than you. It's not the same, because we all have our own experiences and are unique to that, but there's many similarities. Like, we have similar goals and dreams a lot of the time. And you will attract those people into your life if you're naturally putting that out there into the universe. You become a magnet for it because people will recognize themselves in you. So you have to become what you want to attract. And to do this, you have to reinforce this new system of behavior and belief about yourself. And that takes a lot of repetition. So that's my transformation in a nutshell. It continues. It's an ongoing journey, ongoing process. We don't just stop sailing. It's not really about the destination. It's about falling in love with the process, which is how you're able to do the reps over and over and over again. That's how you keep your business alive. That's how you keep your fitness journey alive. The goal is not a certain weight or certain muscle mass. The goal is to be healthy if you're on a fitness journey. If you're trying to build a business, the goal is, could be financial freedom, but typically you want to employ yourself in something that has meaning, because you could sit on a beach and sip, pina coladas all day, every day, but even that'll get old as well. Typically, when we set up the giving and receiving loop, that's where we get the most fulfillment, is when we're giving back to something greater than ourselves. So aim to employ yourself on something that is not only important to you, but also gives back to others, and see if you can reach, the highest level of that, because that'll be the most rewarding, fulfilling experience. I hope this stuff helps people understand what it looks like, what it takes. It's, there are life storms, there are bumps, there are waves. It's not necessarily easy or hard or anything like that. It simply is. It's the journey itself. There's going to be trials and tribulations, and the more we have mentors and support groups to help share their wisdom and knowledge and experience, it can help us navigate our own journeys and stay focused on the process. Yeah, so get out there and transform. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Do You Mind podcast. If you guys like this episode, please share it, like it, comment, let me know how I'm doing. I do want to grow this channel and reach as many people as possible. So if this had an impact on you, Share a little bit of your story so other people can relate. Share it with some friends, people that you think need to hear this stuff. And once again, thank you for your support and stay tuned for more episodes. Take care.